Now, welcome to the Chapter 44 background sort of information, crap like that. If you don't really care about stories, or this sort of stuff isn't for you, I'd always suggest go watching another movie. I don't want to waste your time here. So, Chapter 44 is kind of a story that had to write itself. It's something that I didn't really want to do, because I didn't want Ragni to face her first dragon in the Soul Can. But unfortunately, while you're winging this kind of content, sometimes you're forced to do it because at the end of the day, Serana would it's one of those quests where Serana is glued to your side because it has to do with finding her mother. It's an Elder Scroll hunt, and this is the Elder Scroll that her mother has, so she's 100% going to follow you. The second Elder Scroll hunt is the main Elder Scroll hunt in the main quest line, but she doesn't give a shit about that one. She'll follow you and aid you, but you could tell her to piss off and go and do it yourself if you wanted to. But unfortunately, she was glued to my side, so we had to go and do the quest line, which also gave some pretty cool character building to Ragni and Serana. It gave them a lot more of a personal touch, and, well, what I mean by that is that, you know, it was a lot of character building for Ragni, especially when it comes to becoming a vampire. How she had to survive to become, to survive the Soul Can. That she had to become the very thing that she hated. And doing that, she got to learn what it was like being a vampire. I'll just skip forward ahead for you. She had to learn, she had to become this to survive the Soul Can. I don't really believe that partial soul trap's even a thing. It's just like a little side thing Bethesda did to make it give you a choice into the Soul Can, that if you didn't want to turn to a vampire. It was just a little gameplay element that Bethesda added because you can't partially soul trap somebody. You can't just take a bit of their soul, you gotta take all of it. And secondly, you're a goddamn dragonborn, you're the soul of a dragon. You cannot soul trap a dragon. So I went with the only natural way it was, and I went into a land of the dead to become dead to survive it, because the Soul Can is not an ordinary Oblivion realm. It's not like, say, I forgot Meridia's Light or whatever, the Coloured Rooms or the Shivering Isles, where it respects the flow of time, where Oblivion's time acts like Tamriel's time. Well, it's all down to the Daedric princes, or those who rule the realm, decide how the time works in these realms, or time works on certain people. And this doesn't have that at all. It's completely twisted. It's unnatural. It's very much like a vampire. It's dead. It's pale, and time just doesn't work here like it does in Tamriel. But so she had to become a vampire to survive this realm, right? And this gives her the ability to understand, just to see firsthand what a vampire is. Because, in the start of her story that her parents, or her sister and her mother were killed by vampires. Her stem of hatred towards vampires started there. And she sees them as monsters. Not as people, they're just monsters. That's all they are to her. Just bloodthirsty animals. And while becoming a vampire, in the Soul Can, the cons do not show themselves because it's in a timeless void. So she won't get hungry here. And no matter how much time she spends here, she'll never get hungry. But with this, when she gets out of Tamriel, she's able to experience the cons of becoming a vampire. She's able, she feels exactly what vampires feel. That bloodlust, it just drives you crazy. It's like, I don't know, never been addicted to drugs, but I'd probably imagine that'd be like a meth head that's hasn't had a fix for a few days, and they're just chewing the shit, they're just rattling their teeth. Everything in your body is telling you to get that fix, and heartbeat, the smell, the taste in the air, it's driving her nuts, and she's able to understand why vampires are what they are. They're not inherently evil for the sake of being evil creatures. While becoming a vampire and experiencing bloodlust, she's got a bit more compassion behind her when she's done, because she knows what drives them towards becoming monsters. She was moments where she almost lost it herself. She had to run away because of the fear of becoming the very thing that destroyed her family. Becoming a monster. She'd never be able to forgive herself. And that was a big driving moment for this entire chapter. It's kind of about her. She's got a quest to follow, but she's got a lot of learning and understanding to do. To not just learn about what makes a vampire, but to kind of realize there are people behind the fangs, especially with Serana. You know, when she first saw Serana, it was just a bloodsucker. But she's come to learn that Serana, she didn't become a vampire by choice. She became a vampire because her parents forced her into that life. Because they worships a Molag bull, that when she finds out she was raped and beaten to death and resurrected as a vampire, it changes her opinion on Serana, especially when she sees Serana trying to help the cause, trying to help mortal kind stop her father. Her entire life has been, you know, a subject of rule. She was made, you know, she was a daughter, and she was used by her father and mother to go out and have sex with people, to intimidate people, to, you know, learn this. She just never had a connection with anybody that wasn't forced upon her, that didn't suit her parents' goals. And that's why she's very awkward and, you know, really bad at flirting. She doesn't really, she seduces, she doesn't flirt. She doesn't like, she seduces to get what she wants, or what she wanted back then. And she's never had a genuine connection with somebody where it's you know, it's kind of even on both sides. Yeah, I imagine when she was a vampire, before she was put to sleep, that everything that she did was, you know, to gain something, you know, information, intimidation. Well, she even says that she was used, basically, her body was used to gain things, and this sort of crap. So with the Dragonborn, she actually has a firstly genuine connection. Now in my game, it's always the followers of the Dragonborn, those that are destined to aid the Dragonborn, always have weird senses about each other and the Dragonborn themselves. And this Serana is one of them. She is one of these companions, and even before Ragni even saw her, she sensed her inside the tomb. She didn't sense her, she knew there was a strange person nearby. She's had these feelings before with Topher, Cecilia, and Centauros. And she kind of knew something was, you know, someone was there. You know, someone was nearby that she could sense. And Serana had the same feeling when she woke up. She had this strange feeling about the woman that just opened the door, and she had to hit her with a certain spell. But she had a strange feeling this person was good. This person, someone she could trust and rely on. And she'd never really had that in her life. Sure, it was kind of the makings of a Doom-driven, like an Elder Scroll, that kind of put them all together. But she never was able to experience a genuine connection with anybody, and she felt that as soon as she woke up, because she was destined to aid the Dragonborn in saving the world. And which led her to basically betray her father and join the Dawn Guard. And when it starts off, their relationship's quite murky, but with this questline, she has a lot of understanding of why Serana is who she is. Not just why she's a vampire, but what led her to become a vampire. And it is a sad story. It's absolutely brutal, you know. Serana might have been alive for a couple hundred years as a 20-something-year-old vampire, but at the end of the day, she's still very naive, because she was told what to do. And she did exactly that for hundreds of years, probably thousands of years. I think probably a couple hundred years. I don't think they're that old. I think Harkon is, and Valeric has been alive for that long, but I don't think Serana has been. It's just, she's experiencing the world entirely on her own, you know, with no one telling her what to do. And this is why she's so clumsy and bad at jokes and really horrible at flirting, because this is the first time in her life where she's had her very own choices to make her very own decisions, and things like that. So I like that she comes off as very naive and very sort of childish at heart in a certain regard, when, you know, she's a couple hundred years old, no doubt, and has done some horrible shit, or aided in some horrible shit. But with the Dragonborn, she can experience a new life, and the Dragonborn gets to realise who Serana is. She gets to see the person behind the fangs and stuff like that, which is a big eye-opening for this entire chapter, that she's able to experience what it is firsthand to be a vampire, to understand why they go bad. It's not just they're evil for evil's sake, there's a reason why they lose their shit, and she gets to experience that, and when it opens her eyes a bit. Especially opens her eyes to vampires like Cecilia, and of course Serana, that don't give in to their bloodlust. Maybe it's, you know, they've gotten used to it over time, but it's still in her head. It drove her nuts. You know, she just couldn't get that bloodthirst out of her head until she touched the blood, like, you know, a small amount of blood in a flask, and it drove her nuts. So she has now a massive respect for vampires that don't lash out and become the very... Because again, in this game, vampires hide away in caves, and they're bloodthirsty creatures. I mean, they constantly give in to their bloodlust. Things like Serana, even Zarita, who's a new vampire, and Cecilia, Serana, the three of them, whatever. They don't give in to their bloodlust. It's there, but it doesn't drive them. And she has massive respect, or she will have massive respect after this, for those certain vampires that resist the urge to rip everything apart and feed on them. And this is kind of what this was about. This chapter was about character building, understanding, and realizing that her hatred wasn't entirely misplaced, but she knows a little bit more about it. The people that killed her family weren't just evil for evil's sake. They did what they did because they couldn't control their bloodlust. There's still no reason to forgive or anything like that, but now she has some understanding behind what happened. Now, I think there's not much really lore or knowledge on the Volkir family. I mean, what I know so far is that they are they're Nords that lived in the times of the dragons, because Serana rocked up before Dunavir, but I think they're Nords that are also alive after Elderwing's been defeated, so post-Elderwing defeat and pre-dragon extinction. Because I'm pretty sure once Elderwing was defeated, all the dragons that survived basically went out and did their own thing. Once the big boss was gone, no one to manage him. They were, the cult kind of fell apart. Elderwing ruled them, and they had cults and magical things. But after that, dragons just became territorial creatures and fought for their own pieces of territory, killing any dragon that would get in their way, things like that. So I think this is the time they're from. I think they're first era Nords. Probably a couple hundred years after Elderwing's defeat to the Nord heroes. So they're quite bloody old, and that castle's been sitting there for a long time, and it's so strange that no one's ever gone to it and discovered this vampire's there. So I built like a ghost story around it, that anyone that goes to that keep never returns, and for hundreds of years you've had small bands of mercenaries or soldiers go there and they never return. And so it builds a big ghost story that 20 men go into this castle to experience or find out why people don't return, and then those 20 men don't return, which leads to a massive ghost story of people, not even armies, wanting to go there, to leave it alone. It's up the coast. I'm not going nowhere near next to that thing. I'd rather go to jail than go to that thing. So that's kind of the story I built around Castle Volkir, that it's a ghost story that no one even wants to go to. And, well, we realise in Skyrim why. But yeah, this entire chapter was just an eye-opening for Ragni to kind of understand Serana a lot more, to understand herself, and to understand why vampires are vampires and the struggles they deal with. And yeah, I really like this because it's a big eye-opener for her. Now, there was another reason I didn't want to have this dragon fight, because it kind of takes away from her first dragon fight. She's been having dreams of dragons pretty much all the time, and they get more fierce and closer the closer we get to Elderwing. But again, I have no bloody choice in the regard. But it was always, the idea was like, how does she survive a dragon in the Soul Can? I mean, it makes no goddamn sense. That dragons on Temrael are like boss level, like dangerous. Like, I've already started messing around with chapter 45 with the dragons, and I had like a team of 4 people with me when I fought a dragon. It was badly injured, and it fire breathed me, and just cooked everyone behind me instantly. These guys were like good combatants. They can easily stand a fight against, probably a group of 12 vampires, or 12 combatants. But this dragon, fire breath, cooked them straight away. They were dead within seconds. I mean, I want dragons in this to be absolutely brutal. And so it was kind of hard to explain how she survived this. But when it comes down to it, she's a vampire lord. She's with 2 daughters of Cold Harbor. And she's fighting a dragon that's mangly and old. It hasn't, it might be a dragon, but it's nowhere near the power it was when it first entered here. It is very weakened. If it was to fight a dragon from Temrael, even the lowest of dragon, it would have its ass absolutely handed to it because of how weak and old it is. That, how inexperienced of fighting other dragons it is. And so that's kind of how I put it down to how they were able to defeat this dragon, by its sheer weakness and their sheer strength. Like, the 3 of them have got overpowered powers. They're overpowered. But the dragon, he isn't. He's nerfed. and they're overpowered. He's still a dragon, but to fight 3 Daughters of Cold Harbor while being an ancient, dragon that's withered away and died here, it's the reason I give for them being able to defeat him, which kind of also plays part in the next dragon fight, which they think, alright, we killed one, we'll kill another, and it doesn't go exactly to plan. It's obviously will, because that's the whole entire Dragonborn thing, but they'll realise pretty quick that this one was very different to the ones they'll fight in Tamriel. The ones in Tamriel are alive, young and strong, or haven't lost themselves to being undead. Now I like this because he basically calls you Quinarin. I call him Dunavir, which is kind of like a little nod to a foreshadowing of what you're about to become. Is his instinct is to call you Quinarin, which is what dragons call each other that have slayed other dragons. And he doesn't know why, but it just feels natural to him because you've got the soul of a dragon, he's got the soul of a dragon. And he foreshadows that if you haven't yet started the Dragonborn, or the main quest line, that he will still call you this, and you'll have questions of, followed over, I'm not a dragon, you don't have no idea that you're the Dragonborn. And I really like that sort of thing, and it's kind of like, it just foreshadows what she's about to become, and I mean what she's about to become. It's cooking, we're finally getting there when it comes to the story, but I like the foreshadowing. This entire thing is foreshadowing everything. Soulless, the name of it's kind of foreshadowing not where she is, but what she becomes. The returning back to Tamriel when it's no longer winter. When she went in, she was pale and dead and cold, like Skyrim was. And when she came back and cured herself, she was full of life and warm once more, very much like Skyrim. This entire goddamn chapter is about foreshadowing. Should have just called it foreshadowing. But it's I don't know, it's starting to heat up. Her life is starting to take some change. She was just a young woman exploring, then a bard, then joined onto the Dawn Guard to hunt vampires, and then an Elder Scroll, a fate of the Elder Scrolls put into her hands. It's not exactly the one that's written her story, but as soon as she gets into the story of the Elder Scroll, shit starts to get a bit messy. And that's what I like about this. I mean, you're messing around with the prophecies of Elder Scrolls. Things aren't going to be, swim in the shallow. It's going to throw you into the deep end. And this is what's happening to Ragni. She is getting thrown into the deep end, and shit's about to kick off in her life. Once an ordinary Nord, well, not for long in the future. She's Destiny's got a call, or in this case, it's going to shout. Now, I've done videos on this before. Basically, when I play as a vampire, I play with night vision on. And this is why I love my EMB, because my EMB does this. Other EMBs don't use night vision for some reason. And, well, this is kind of the first time I've shown a vampire suffering from the daylight or the bloodlust. I mean, I showed this in Chapter 1 with Cecilia, that she didn't like the daylight. It's that she was a newly turned vampire at that time during her story. But this time I showed the negative effects of the bloodlust. The heartbeat, you see the blood flowing through their veins. She's losing the battle of her consciousness from her and the monster. And this got the mods that I use to have these visual effects is Better Vampires. There's a power and there's a setting in Better Vampires to increase the brightness or lower it. I max it out because when I'm playing a vampire, this is a grounded story. I want to feel like if Tamriel was somewhat real. If I'm playing a vampire, I want to experience what a vampire would experience. I want those ugly days that hurt, and I want those beautiful nights that, they're meant to be nocturnal creatures, right? So, the daytime is hideous. I mean, it's so goddamn bright. It's gross. Where the nighttime in my game during Immortal is like Darkman. You can't see 20 feet in front of you. But with night vision on as a vampire during the night, it is so drop dead gorgeous, man. Like, it is beautiful. And it encourages you more to jump into the character's shoes and play the vampire, to be the vampire. Because I think most times I see vampires in games, my bad, in Skyrim they're like really cute, beautiful, red-eyed anime girls that run around during the daytime all the time, just drinking blood. And I wanted this to be somewhat of a vampire experience, which was, the first time you're able to see the real negative effects of a vampire, because we've played Cecilia quite a lot. She's controlled her bloodlust. She knows what it's all about. But Ragni, she's turned into a vampire in the midst of a civil war. There's a lot of death, a lot of blood, and even that guy right there is injured, and she's just staring at him. He's been injured and he's on the way back home, but then she walks into town and there's been a civil war battle. After drinking blood, she thinks she'll be alright, but then she starts to lose the battle again. She starts to, give back into her bloodlust. It's the smell of it's driving her nuts. She's fed, but it's not fed enough to keep her well sustained. But I don't think really vampires, especially ones that hide in caves, don't get fed well enough to be able to hold back that thing. So she runs off to a vampire cave, somewhere where she knows she won't be any danger to anybody. And this is where she heavily relies on Serana to help her out, because she can't go into town and risk becoming a monster. And Serana takes this quest and does it for her. She goes into Morthal and she asks about this cure, and Falion basically goes, "Yep, there is a cure that I've heard of, and I'm pretty sure it works," which gives some playtime to Serana that she's able to now take control and able to go out and help Ragni, find a cure for herself. And it makes a lot of sense because Serana's well trained in bloodlust, and she's also got the ability to use Mortal Mask to walk into town and not look like a pale-skinned death walker. And it shows that she's always willing to help Ragni. That she's genuine about this connection with this person that she's got, that isn't something forced upon her. That she's generally cares about Ragni, even being a vampire. And I like it how Falion, he's well versed in this. He's a very magical room. There's an invisible book on his bookshelf. But he's able to spot, a vampire, which is cool, because I've said this in my game many times with Mortal Mask users, that an experienced vampire hunter or someone experienced in it would tell a vampire apart if they got close to somebody. If they saw the sunken cheeks, or saw a fang when they talked, or touched their skin to reveal that it wasn't natural, it was cold to the touch. And he's one of them. She's got a Mortal Mask on, but he can still spot her because of her sunken cheeks. And of course, while she's talking to him, she might have sharper canines. So it was a chance to kind of show Ragni that she could rely on Serana, that Serana would help her, because Serana cares about her. And it kind of starts the romance, or like I said, this is a big eye-opener for Ragni when it comes to understanding everything about vampirism and vampires and stuff like this, and she sees them a bit more as people, no longer just monsters now, and she's seeing Serana as someone that generally looks out for her, not just some bloodsucker that she's got to deal with, but someone that she can rely on. And that's kind of what everyone kind of needs in this world when they're out with people. They need someone to rely on. She's able to start to really trust and learn that Serana isn't out to doing her any harm, but is out to try and be there for her, to want to be around her, to want to help, and it shows her that, and it leads down to that, which we'll at the end of this chapter just it starts the romance. It's just a kiss, but it's acknowledgement of new feelings and understandings of each other. I didn't see Ragni as I knew where her story was going to go when I started this, but I didn't want her to be straight up into chicks. She didn't even care about women. She looks at them, she was they're pretty, but she was more into guys. Centauros and I forgot his name, the Dawnguard dude. She was more attracted to men because that's just what she was taught as a kid growing up. But again, she finds she has these feelings for someone that generally cares about her, and she knows that person generally cares about him, and it makes her feel safe, and it makes her feel warmth, I guess, that she's cared for. And it's really all we want, especially if we've lost everyone we loved and cared about, and there's someone that does care about us. We really attach ourselves to that person because we want someone to love us at the end of the day. We want someone to love, and this is kind of what she's feeling. She's feeling that connection, that someone generally really cares about her, and she hasn't got anyone in the world like that. She's on her own, and having someone generally go out there and do things for her and care for her and protect her, that are just there for no reason but to be around, it's something that really kind of opens her heart to the idea of Serana. Even though she's a female and she's never been sexually attracted to females, it's more of Because I can't understand the mind of a woman. I'm not a woman. But I've taken cues of things, and I've talked to people, especially women that weren't into women, that ended up marrying women, that it wasn't about sexual attraction or looks like it is for blokes. For us, it was just the way they felt, the way that person made them felt. And I guess this is the way for Ragni that so it's not about looking at Serana's ass cheeks and wanting to get in there and muff dive it, you do a bit of motorboating. But it's about how Serana makes her feel. How Serana impacts her life, which is kind of where the romance starts. I love the shot because, it's always good to visually update your character, but when you see her as a pale-skinned, blood-eyed vampire, it's just something different, and somewhat, like, the moonlight on her face makes her look so beautiful, even though she is somewhat so disgusting in a certain way. And it's just it's something that you'll never see again with Ragni, but it's one of those things where it's like she looks completely different, but also somewhat still beautiful. And this is the only time you'll ever see her like that. She'll go back to being her sort of tan-skinned Imperial. Nord. She's not your typical Nord lass, but she's got pale skin and blonde hair. Because her parents were Cyrodiilic Nords, and one of her grandparents in Cyrodiil, if they're still alive, could very well be an Imperial. So she's got that Imperial skin tone sort of thing about her, where she's got darker skin and green eyes. Now, this is the time where, basically, it was one of those things one of those scenes I love taking, where you're able to just, it takes a bit of work. This scene really messed with me, man. I hated it, because my save died. I had to revert back and redo it and place all the objects again. So, from what you're seeing with the pale vampire Ragni right here, and when it transfers to her living vampire, I had to go basically and redo all this shit over again, because my save carked it. And that was a nightmare, but I love the whole idea that the screen goes black, and then when it re-emerges, she's now got her skin tone back, and there's a subtle difference. You'll notice that Thalion's voice sounds a bit closer or further away when this happens, but I just like the idea of the screen going black, and all of a sudden the colour's back to being normal, and she's got her skin tone back, her eye colour back, she's no longer a vampire. And now the touch of the sun on her skin isn't stinging, burning. It's warmth. It's a kiss pretty much. And I like that. She's returned back to what she wanted to be. She never wanted to be a vampire, and she's now back to being human. But she's now her with a lot more understanding on what makes a vampire a vampire. She's no longer kill and burn and turn to ash every vampire she comes across. She's going to be a lot more compassionate towards what they are. Even if they are inherently evil, she understands why they do what they do, because she's experienced that firsthand. I didn't really want this to happen straight away, but it was me messing up my save pretty much by speeding up time to clean it, because I normally speed up time like by 1,000,000. So basically the game resets, and then basically saving and cleaning, and I did this while she was still following me by mistake. So the way SDA works, Serana Dialogue Overhaul, is it works with time in game. So if you got Serana as a follower, it will count how much time you spend with her before certain things open up. And if I didn't speed through time with her as a follower, then I don't think I would have had this romance available. But I think it's because they're both young, they're both young women in a way. Serana is still somewhat mentally, I think, very young and naive, and I guess naive people don't really take their time, and I guess this romance blooming pretty early on is probably, it's a condition of them both being somewhat young and naive, and learning brand new things together. So it kind of works, because they're both young women, and they're both not seriously mature enough to kind of understand or take their time with the way they see things and how they feel. But again, it worked out, and hopefully next time I won't have her as a follower and I speed up time to clean things. So during the Dragonborn's journey, the romance will blossom. It's just a kiss. That's all it is. It's just a kiss. It's the understanding of each other's feelings, of Ragni's eyes being opened by who Serana really is in her eyes and what she's gone through, and the connection that she has with the Dragonborn, Serana's connection with the Dragonborn, that shows that she really cares about her, that she you know, she thinks she's the one thing in her life that isn't forced upon her, that isn't out there to make her do things she doesn't want to do, that generally cares about her. And that's an important thing to Serana. Her entire life is being used and set on certain paths to use other people, and having someone in her life that she knows cares about her, that is something really important to her. That's her main drive to following the Dragonborn, and that the Dragonborn, or the Ragni, truly cares about her, and it's genuine. That's kind of what drives Serana, and that's good, because like, if we know her past, wasn't very rosy, well, it was the bottom of the rose, very thorny, and this time she gets to pick her own choices in life and have her very own person around that wants to be around her, and that means the world to Serana. Oh, so we come to the end of the chapter, where, you know, time is... Oh, I've even got to mention that about time, that, you know, the Soul Can, the whole business of that. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'll mention it real quick, that the Soul Can doesn't really obey the laws of time. It is just a... You know, like most... I think I have mentioned this. Most realms that have mortals in it, it respects, you know, natural time for the sake of the mortals that live in it. But Soul Can isn't a place where mortals live. So it's warped in time. You know, it could literally feel like Valeric has been there only for a month in her head, to where it's been thousands, or it's been 1,000 years in real time. And I wanted to kind of show that case where they walk in there and they're only there for about 4 or 5 hours, but when they come out it's been 2 months. That people that walk into the Soul Can, when they come out, time is it's slipped away from them, sort of thing. But other than that, that's kind of the and the reason I did that is because I wanted to skip a bit more ahead in time, and there's a few more dragons around, which gives kind of a merit for the Dragonborn to meet a dragon on the road. But other than that, if you've liked this story, give it a like and all that sort of stuff. If you've disliked it, give it a dislike. And hopefully you've enjoyed this background information, because at the end of the day, I make these stories because I enjoy them. I don't give two shits about views. If there's like 45 people that watch this sort of stuff and they really enjoy it, that's all that really matters. And hopefully it inspires them to craft similar stories, take bits and pieces of mine and chuck them into their own, and maybe one day they'll even share it on YouTube. Or I'll see certain characters that are inspired by my own and stuff like that. Like, it's just an inspiration for people to really jump into the thing, and hopefully it's an inspiration for Skyrim players to do something new, play a multiple character series where they're not stuck playing the one character and forced to miss out on so many different other quest lines and stuff like that because of their roleplay abilities. You know, like you play the Just Knight, you have to go kill the Dawn, the Dark Brotherhood, because that is your character's sort of, you know, that's their role play. Where with this one, I'm able to play every character you can think under the book, but still keep and play all the quests available, because I've got many of them. They're all different kinds of personalities and stuff like that. You know, I'm not restricted on what I can and can't do due to my character's role play, and you're always going to be restricted with that when it comes to the one character playthrough. And I've got 9 of them. I've got like, I think 12 of them, I think, but 9 of them are the main characters and stuff like that. But anyway, if you've enjoyed this sort of content, it'd be cool to give it a like. But first of all, hopefully you give the original video a like chapter 44, Soulless. Give that one a like and drop a comment down there, because those likes and comments will help out in the algorithm and get that to more people that like to enjoy this sort of stuff. It's not for everyone, it's really not. But it is for some, and if I can find some of those people that really enjoy this sort of stuff, they'll probably have a good time watching this, and they've got a lot to catch up on. Anyway guys, I'm going to get out of here and get to the next chapter, which starts book 2, and I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'm going to get out of here and look after yourselves, and catch us in the next vid. Peace out.